Hey guys, it's Archon, and I just want to make this quick video for you showing you how you can fix your critical mass build so it starts working again in 1.0.5. This will also help you if you've never tried critical mass before and you want to try it out for the first time. So as many of you know, they made a big nerf in 1.0.5 to the Storm Chaser rune on Energy Twister, which is what pretty much all critical mass wizards are using. So we're going to have to make some alterations, we're going to have to change up a couple skills, and we're going to have to get some new stats. It's going to be a little bit harder than it was before, but it still works. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the best build for any class on those high monster powers. Monster power 8, 9, 10, critical mass just owns. It does really good in long fights, and it can keep those enemies stun locked, which gives you a ton of survivability and even more utility to your group. Critical mass wizards really help groups in those high monster powers and the uber boss fights. So first I want to go over the skills that you're going to need to change up, and then I'll talk about some of the stats you're going to need now that they've nerfed Storm Chaser. So of course, here's the old critical mass build, and we have Storm Chaser on Energy Twister, Chain Reaction on Explosive Blast, Diamond Skin with Crystal Shell. There's a few of these that you might have done differently. Frost Nova, you could put Deep Freeze, or you could also put Bone Chill or Cold Snap here. That doesn't change at all. This skill could be many different things. Energy Armor with Prismatic was a must, of course, and then Critical Mass, Cold Blooded, and this passive here could be different things. I have it as Evocation. So now I just want to show you some of the things that you need to change and some of the things that you might want to change come 1.0.5. The first thing is going to be, instead of using Storm Chaser, you're going to want to use Wicked Wind again. Storm Chaser was good because there was a bug in 1.0.4 which made its proc coefficient 4 times as high, which means it was ticking the arcane power on crit, your critical mass, and your life on hit 4 times as much as it should have been. Now all the runes do the same thing, but Wicked Wind is going to be the best for you because the twisters stay still. You get a lot more ticks off, because instead of the twister just passing through the enemies one time, it's sitting on there for the entire 6 seconds. So no doubt you want to use Wicked Wind. Some people have been trying to use Meteor or Living Lightning, some other things, and they might work okay, but nothing's going to work like Wicked Wind. I'm telling you, use it. Explosive Blast, Chain Reaction, not changing. Diamond Skin with Crystal Shell, not changing. Frost Nova, not really changing. But you do have an option here to change to Cold Snap. If you're not getting your cooldowns down fast enough, you might want to do Cold Snap just to get some more cooldown so you can make sure you're stun locking. So again, if you're having trouble stun locking, try switching to Cold Snap. Here I like to use Teleport. I think it's the best skill for survivability, but you could use Magic Weapon there. There's a lot of other things. It hasn't really changed since 1.0.4. And then here, Prismatic Armor is no longer necessary. It's not a useless skill. This is still good for just getting your resistances up. Energy Armor is good for getting your armor up. But there's a few different things you can use here now, because they did nerf all defensive skills and lower the amount of damage the enemies do on average. So if you want to use Prismatic, keep your defense up, you can. I like using Force Armor on the really high monster powers. There's a lot of things that can take down half your health or even more than that in one hit, and Force Armor keeps that from happening. If you're going to do the Skeleton King fight, I think Force Armor is a must. It makes that fight so much easier. Uber bosses in general are easier with Force Armor. It's a really good one when you're taking a lot of damage, especially if you don't have a huge health pool. But if you don't want the extra defense, if you're doing fine, you just want to get through it faster, I would recommend Storm Armor with Shocking Aspect. That's going to get you a lot more damage, because every time you crit, which is all the time as a critical mass wizard, you're going to do 35% weapon damage, and it also sends some bolts of lightning around you for 100% weapon damage. Magic Weapon is also a good one just for getting your damage up. If you don't need that that extra damage, you can do Magic Weapon. You can do Familiar with Spark Flint, or any of these. You can just play around with it. There's nothing that you really need here anymore like there used to be, but I'm usually doing the higher monster powers. I do a lot on monster power 10, and so I would use Force Armor there. Passives aren't going to change much. I think Evocation might be better than ever because it's a little bit harder to keep things stun locked than it used to be, and Evocation is going to let you keep things stun locked a little bit easier because your cooldowns are going to come out faster. You could use Glass Cannon if you're on a lower monster power and trying to get there through it really quickly, or Blur if you're taking a lot of melee damage, but usually if you can keep things stun locked, you don't have to worry about that, and I like to use Evocation. You could use Galvanizing Ward, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think Evocation's the way to go until you can at least get things stun locked. Without it, then you might try something else. So those are the skills. Again, the big change, the only real significant change, is you're going to be using Wicked Wind instead of Storm Chaser. But of course, you're only getting a quarter of the ticks. at first at least, so you're going to need a little bit more stats to keep critical mass working. It's going to be a little bit harder than before, but you can still do it if you just have some minimum stats that I'm going to talk about right now. So there are a lot of different stats that you want to worry about when you're building your critical mass set or upgrading your critical mass set. So I'm just going to go over them in what I think is their order of importance. So this is how you can prioritize your stats when you're looking for new gear. So the first one, of course, is going to be crit chance. If you don't have a high crit chance, critical mass just isn't going to work. It's all based off of crits. So I would say you need at least 40% now. It used to be 30-35%, but now I really think you need at least 40% before critical mass is even doable, at least on the higher monster powers. So get that up first. It's going to mean that you need crit chance on every slot that can have crit chance, and you're going to need about 80% of the maximum you can on that slot. So prioritize crit chance first. After that, you need to make sure that you have arcane power on crit. You can get it on your wand, your offhand, or your helm, and I think you need at least 20 now. It used to be about 10 or 15 you needed. Now I think you need at least 20 if you want your arcane power to stay up the whole time. You can get 30, but I really don't think you need it. I think 20 is fine. You can see it on my Enchantodo's Force and my Enchantodo's Will and my Stormcrow. After that, the next thing you're going to want is attack speed. Attack speed wasn't nearly as important in 1.0.4, but now you're going to need a lot of attack speed because it takes a while for the buildup of the Wicked Winds to start getting those ticks. With Storm Chaser, you got ticks right away when it's sent through. With Wicked Wind, you're not getting as many ticks, but after a while, you have enough twisters on there that you're getting just as many ticks as you were before. You just have to be able to get it up quickly. Attack speed also helps you get more twisters out at once because twisters can only stay for 6 seconds. The more you can get out every 6 seconds, the more you have up at any one given time. So I have 2.88 attacks per second. I used to be up at 3.35, but I dropped some to get some more defense. I think you need at least 2 attacks per second. That's a lot more than you needed before, and it's still going to be cutting it close. If you can get up to 2.5, you're going to be doing great, but make sure you're at the very least at 2 attacks per second. Attack speed is more important than ever with critical mass. The most important thing when you're getting your attack speed up is get a fast weapon. Get a wand with attack speed on it, get a Enchantodo's Force, get a dagger, something with a fast attack speed, because all your attack speed bonuses are going to multiply that base attack speed, and so that's going to make a much bigger difference than just getting some attack speed on pieces of gear. And you're also going to need to get attack speed on probably at least one of your rings, maybe your amulet, gloves, and there's a few other pieces like Cooney's Prowlers and Witching Hour that can also give you attack speed. But make sure you're getting that over 2 attacks per second. Now the next thing we're talking about is survivability, and the most important stat with survivability is going to be life on hit. My life on hit's actually a little bit low. It's at 648, which was fine for 1.0.4, and it's been working okay for me, but you might want to get this up a little bit higher, maybe up to 800. I think 600 would be the minimum you want now. You're not getting as many ticks, so you need more life on hit than you did before. And life on hit is going to be the best stat for filling your health up. Don't worry about life regeneration, life on kill, anything like that. Life steal, life on hit's where it's at. If you get some life steal too, especially if you're doing a lot of damage, it's going to help. But life on hit's going to help more than anything. After that, you can worry about your armor and resistances. Armor and resistances are going to keep your diamond skin up, and it's going to make you drop a lot slower. Right now, I have about 550 to 650 all resist. I think you need at least 500 unbuffed. I would say at least 500 unbuffed. Now, the better those first stats are, especially crit chance, the less defensive skills you're going to need, because the more often you'll be able to cast Diamond Skin and Frost Nova, so the less damage you'll be taking. If you're not able to stun lock, you're going to need a lot more resistance and armor, so that's why I prioritize the crit chance, the arcane power on crit, and the attack speed. Those are the 3 things you need to keep things stun locked and keep your Diamond Skin up. If you have those, you might be able to get away with less than 500. You might be able to go down to 400, but I would say minimum 500 all resist unbuffed, and try to get to 3,500 to 4,000 armor unbuffed. Armor is really devalued for all classes. A lot of people don't realize that 10 points of armor is equal to 1 point of all resist. So look for that extra armor on gear because it helps just as much as all resist does, and people don't realize how good it is, so you can get it really cheap. The amount of health you need is going to be based on what monster power you're on. Right now I have just over 30,000 health, but I'm thinking about getting that up to 40,000 health for monster power 10. But there is an advantage to having lower health when you're using force armor. So once you have all your defenses up, once you're able to stun lock, then you can start worrying about damage. I wouldn't worry about damage any sooner, because if the critical mass build isn't working yet, if you can't stun lock enemies and keep them in place, then it's really not worth getting any extra damage, because it's not going to do any good anyways. And if you're not staying alive, it's not doing any good anyways. So please make sure you get the build working, then you get your defenses up so you're not dying, and then worry about damage. And to get your damage up, you're just going to get intelligence and critical hit damage. You can see I actually don't have much critical hit damage. If I got some more of that, I could put my damage up a lot higher, but I don't have it on my weapon. If you're not getting a Chantoto's Will, then it's good to get a weapon with a socket so you can get that extra burst of crit hit damage and get your damage up. But again, that should be your last priority. So those are the stats you need. Those are the bare minimums I think you should have. It's going to take a little bit longer to get the build up and running. Long fights is where critical mass really prevails now, because after about 6 seconds you're just good to go. Now I'd just like to show you the build in action and give you some tips on how you can play critical mass better. I'm on Act 2 right now, Monster Power 10, and of course all the acts are the same difficulty once you've enabled Monster Power. And we're going to go to Black Canyon Mines, because there's usually a couple elite packs here, and I'd like to show you the build on an elite pack. Now in 1.0.4 you could pretty much just spam all the buttons and you were fine, because you were getting enough ticks from your Storm Chaser. Now you're not going to get nearly as many procs, and so you can't just spam it like you could before, because you need to make sure you're getting out as many energy twisters as possible. So I'm going to try to group up some guys a little bit here, because it does make it easier. But the key thing here is we don't want to cast Diamond Skin or Frost Nova unless we absolutely have to. So I'm going to start by getting a lot of energy twisters down, because those give me most of my ticks. And then I'm going to start spamming Explosive Blast a little bit. And I'm only going to cast Diamond Skin when it falls off, and I'm only going to cast Frost Nova when I need to. If Frost Nova is not coming off cooldown fast enough, you might want to try using Cold Snap instead. But you can see I don't want to cast Frost Nova just repeatedly, because every time you cast Frost Nova unnecessarily, that's one more energy twister you could have gotten out. And same with Diamond Skin, I only want to cast it when I need to, because I'm just wasting casts that I could have used on Energy Twister, and those Energy Twister casts are what's giving my ticks, and that's really what's making the build work. So the more of those I can get out, the better. So you can hear me probably just tapping Explosive Blast right now while I'm holding down the Energy Twister button. My Diamond Skin didn't quite go out there, that was a close one. And I want to make sure that I'm getting a good amount of twisters out and also getting a couple Explosive Blasts. Explosive Blasts aren't going to give you as many procs as Energy Twister does, but it is what's doing most of your damage. And you see that they're going down pretty quickly now. And it works best when you have a lot of people, but if you have the right stats, like I was talking about before, you can even stun lock a single target just fine. And again, if you're having trouble, try using Cold Snap. Make sure you have Evocation on there, and that'll get your cooldowns down even faster. So now that I only have 3 targets, I'm not getting the extra crit from Deep Freeze. I might start getting a little bit less cooldown reduction. I might have to pay more attention to make sure I'm getting my Frost Nova off every time. You can see you can keep them stun locked pretty well. I could even do better if I was on it more. And critical mass still works amazingly, especially in groups. You provide a lot of utility to your group. So hopefully this video will help you guys get your critical mass build working on 1.0.5 so you can go and own some of those higher monster power levels. If you're going to be playing on lower monster power, you might want to try the Archon build. It's really good when you can kill guys quickly so you can stay in Archon all the time. But I really think this is the way to go for those higher monster powers and the uber bosses, and your group's really going to appreciate you keeping everyone frozen and keeping them from running away or hitting them. So get out there, try it, try out the stats that I said to, and play around with those skills a little bit, and hopefully you guys can pwn and stun lock like you were in 1.0.4. Thanks for watching, guys. Come hang out on Twitch sometime on the live stream and we can play together. We do a lot of giveaways and viewer runs, and we've been recently helping people get their Hellfire rings. So I'll put a link to the Twitch stream in the description. If you like the videos, please hit subscribe, and I'll have another one for you soon. Thanks for watching.